A lot of people think that annotated bibliographies are just busy work. And, well, in some definitions of the term, they are. It's true that the annotations you turn in won't be included in your final paper. But this stage of this research process is important for a few reasons, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. So an annotated bibliography is a document that you produce as part of a larger information gathering process. In this stage of the research, you're learning about your topic in order to generate a research question. But you're also gathering information that you'll use to write the literature review section of the final paper. So the best thing that you can do at this stage is to have an organized system of note-taking that will make sure that the work you do for your annotated bibliography can be useful down the road for your literature review. In this video, I'm going to talk about how you can do that. I'm also going to talk about the structure of annotations for your annotated bibliography. I'll tell you what you need to include and why. Like I said earlier, you could probably make an argument that this annotated bibliography is busy work. But since no one wants to do busy work, I'm going to make an argument that this annotated bibliography actually does a few important things for your research process. For starters, this assignment gets you moving on collecting and reading the research on your topic. Nothing that you need to do as part of your research process can be done if you don't start doing this. You can't come up with a research question, you can't decide on a research method, and you certainly can't start writing the paper. But the annotated bibliography is also helpful in getting you to practice reading and learning from academic research. You'll get more familiar with the structure of an academic article while you're reading them. And this is important since you're going to be writing one of these yourself. And you also learn how to assess the credibility of these articles and also their relevance to your own research. And you get to keep practicing that. At this point, you're going to be reading articles that are going to provide you with information about existing knowledge and previous research that are going to be relevant to your own paper. And that's why you have to work smarter at this stage so that you can avoid working harder later. Well, what do I mean by that? For each academic journal article that you find, you're going to make a decision about whether that article is going to be a valuable source for your own research paper. When you decide that an article is relevant and useful, you want to be smart about how you record the information from that source so that it can be used later in the process. I'm going to show you how I do this so that you can either use this system yourself or adapt it to your own purposes. Let me show you an example. This is a note-taking document from when I was writing my book a few years ago, when I had to read some additional research so that I could expand my literature review section. So what I did, as you can see here, was that I started each section with the proper citation for the article, which you can see that right here in bold. In my case, I was using APA style, so you can see that the source is formatted for that style. Remember that you are allowed to choose whatever style that you want for your citations, as long as you're consistent. And remember that you can also use Google Scholar to properly format your bibliography entries in APA style. I'm going to put this document on Moodle as an example for you to look at, but I'll point out a few things at this point. For each source, and I do have many of them, this was a big project, I've recorded a combination of general knowledge or paraphrases, like the second item here, along with direct quotes in quotation marks. Now, when you're recording quotes, remember that it's also important to use the page number or where it's found in the article, because you're going to need that when you're writing your paper. You'll also notice if you look through this document that there are a series of hashtags at the end of each item. This is a system I designed to help me organize this information once I'd come up with an outline for my literature review. And we'll be talking about outlining your literature review in a later stage of this process. Now, once I had my outline and the sections for my outlines, I assigned each one a hashtag. And then I went back through this document full of notes and put the hashtag at each appropriate item. This made it really easy to find the relevant information when I was writing the actual literature review. We'll talk more about outlining and writing the literature review later, but this is just a preview look at how this system can really help you work more efficiently and effectively. At this stage in the research process, you're actually gathering information from your sources that will help you do two things: write the literature review section of your final paper and also write your annotated bibliography. So I'm going to talk briefly about the annotated bibliography at a general level. We'll talk more about the specifics in class. An annotation is literally defined as a note of explanation or comment. That's a little vague for what you're doing here, so let me explain a little more. In this context, the annotation should do a few things. It should talk about the credibility of the research for each article, and this should include the people who did the research, when the article was published, what the method was, things like that. The annotation should also talk about what makes this source relevant to your research and how you might use it to understand and explain your general topic. You can see in the example that it's okay to use the first person here in limited cases. So for instance, this article will help me understand about X, Y, and Z. But you want to make sure that you avoid this when you can and that the focus of your annotation is on the source, not on your own research process. Each annotation should talk about what that source contributes to what we know about your topic. In theory, that's why every research article exists, to explain a new finding that adds to our body of knowledge about a topic. And finally, I've asked you to include your word count at the end of each annotated bibliography entry. This just helps me in the grading process by showing me that your annotations are the appropriate length.